What happens when hope turns into routine, and routine turns into frustration? In Toronto, the answer seems to echo louder with each passing spring. Once again, the Maple Leafs are out of the playoffs. Once again, the dream ends earlier than expected. But this year, the elimination brought something different. It wasn't just the end of the season. It was the beginning of a silent collapse. A collapse that might have a face and a symbol, none other than Mitch Marner. Behind the scenes in the NHL, the echoes of this downfall have already turned into deafening rumors. Mitch Marner may be on the verge of leaving the Maple Leafs, the same player who, nearly a decade ago, arrived as a symbol of the rebuild, the same Toronto-born kid who carried not just the number 16 on his back, but also the expectations of an entire city. Today, he finds himself at the center of a possible goodbye, and all signs point to the next chapter taking place far from Canadian ice. This wouldn't just be a trade. It wouldn't be just another off-season move. It would mark the end of an era, a warning that perhaps the Matthews-Marner era was never enough to fulfill what it promised. This isn't the first time the Leafs have lived through frustration. Fans still remember the collapse against the Montreal Canadiens, the loss to the Columbus Blue Jackets in the pandemic bubble, the repeated failures against the Tampa Bay Lightning and the Boston Bruins. But in 2025, the difference lies in the atmosphere. It's no longer just disappointment. It's wear and tear. And the tension is no longer confined to the ice. It's reached the front office. Despite still playing negotiations, the deepest layers of the franchise. If you made it this far, it's because you feel that weight. So subscribe to the channel now, because here we don't just cover the scoreboard. We show you what's behind it. The backstage, the details, the decisions that shape the NHL. Leave a like and share your thoughts with us, because this Leafs offseason promises to be unlike anything we've seen before. Mitch Marner is getting closer and closer to becoming an unrestricted free agent. With only 1 year left on his contract, the clock is ticking. July 1st is approaching, and what Toronto plans to do about it remains a mystery. What is known and reported by journalists like Anthony D. Marco of Daily Faceoff is that Marner is showing clear signs that he wants a fresh start. And more than that, he doesn't want that fresh start to happen with another Canadian team. That revelation changes everything, because it drastically narrows the possibilities for the Leafs and at the same time points strongly in one direction: the United States. And among the interested teams, one has started to stand out. The Los Angeles Kings, under new leadership with GM Ken Holland, are being mentioned as the top candidate to initiate talks with the player. According to TSN insider Pierre LeBrun, the Kings are ready to hunt big game this offseason, and Marner, with his 102 points on the season, fits that profile perfectly. But the crisis in Toronto goes beyond stats. The breaking point is believed to have begun when Marner refused to waive his no-trade clause in a deal that never materialized. The identity of the other player involved, although not officially revealed, was enough to expose the growing discomfort between the player and the front office. Marner's refusal, while contractually valid, was interpreted behind the scenes as an act of resistance, as a no, not just a trade, but perhaps to an entire project. And here lies the most delicate point. It's no longer just about a player wanting out. It's about a historic bond coming undone. Marner isn't just another piece. He's a hometown kid, the generational talent, the quiet playmaker who led the Leafs in assists and was a cornerstone on both the power play and penalty kill units. Losing him isn't just losing talent. It's losing a piece of the team's identity. But on the other side of the coin, there's also a cold truth. Keeping this core together might mean repeating the same mistakes. The front office knows it, the fans feel it, and the rivals, like the Kings, smell the opportunity. They're watching Toronto from afar, not just as a struggling opponent, but as a vulnerable franchise. A franchise on the verge of handing over, on a silver platter, a star ready to shine on a new stage. And if Marner really leaves, what happens to Toronto? The answer could be devastating, but it could also be liberating. Because sometimes, to reinvent yourself, you have to break. You have to accept that the original plan failed. And with that, build a new path. A path that may be less glamorous, but more authentic. A path with fewer promises and more results. But that doesn't erase the pain. It doesn't erase what Marner meant, and still means. His departure, if confirmed, will be felt. Not just on the ice, but in every fan who once believed he would be part of the redemption of an entire city. And you? Do you believe Mitch Marner really should leave Toronto? Or can this cycle still be saved? Let us know in the comments. We want to hear what real fans have to say. What if, to change everything, the Toronto Maple Leafs had to break their own heart? Morgan Rielly is the last of the loyal ones. The defenseman who arrived before Auston Matthews, before Mitch Marner, before any modern glimmer of hope at Scotiabank Arena. He's been there through the humiliating losses, the promising beginnings, the never-ending rebuilds, and the collapses that always come too soon. But now, what once seemed unthinkable is starting to gain traction. Rielly might be traded. Not because he isn't good enough, but maybe because he's too good to stay trapped in a cycle that doesn't change. The Toronto Maple Leafs have once again been eliminated from the playoffs, this time in the second round against the Florida Panthers. Once again, the promise of a Stanley Cup ended in frustration, silence, and unanswered questions. And, as always, the summer begins with a question: what needs to change? It was in this context that a bold proposal appeared on PuckGM, the trade simulator by Puckpedia. An anonymous user, like so many fans dreaming of transformation, launched a provocative idea: a trade involving Morgan Rielly, Easton Cowan, and a 2025 second-round pick for Noah Dobson of the New York Islanders. Stop. Think for a moment. Rielly, the symbol of loyalty. Cowan, the franchise's top prospect. A valuable second-round pick. All of that in exchange for a single name. But not just any name. Noah Dobson, one of the most promising defensemen in the NHL. A 25-year-old talent who combines mobility, intelligence, and rare offensive potential. This trade, despite still playing at a high level, represents a short-term. The Leafs need something different. A new defensive core. A new identity. And Dobson could be that beginning. But before we look to the future, we have to understand the present and what this proposal represents. Toronto would receive Dobson, who scored 39 points in 71 games this past season and had already impressed with a 70-point campaign 2 years ago, an elite number for a defenseman. A player on the rise, capable of controlling the game from the defensive zone and launching counterattacks with surgical precision. Dobson is still a restricted free agent, meaning Toronto would have full control to sign him long-term. The fan who made the proposal estimated a 7-year contract worth $8 million per season. Dobson would immediately become the Leafs' defensive cornerstone, a player able to bring speed, youth, and creativity to a blue line that's felt repetitive for years. With him, Coach Berube would have more mobility, quicker transitions, and an extra offensive weapon. But the cost is high. Morgan Rielly, 873 games with the Leafs. One of the most respected players in the locker room. He registered 41 points in 82 games this season. He has 4 years left on a $60 million contract and a no movement clause. That means he only leaves if he agrees to it. And he's already made it clear he doesn't want to. When the season ended, he was directly asked if he would consider a trade. His answer was cold, direct, and honest. "That's not something I'm thinking about right now," he said. He talked about personal growth, about coming back better to training camp, about being part of the solution, not the problem. That's who Rielly is, someone who doesn't run from responsibility. And that's exactly what makes this proposal so painful and maybe so necessary, because his loyalty isn't the problem, but it might be preventing the kind of change the franchise needs. On top of that, the package includes Easton Cowan. The young forward is considered the team's most promising prospect. Skilled, fast, and with a competitive mindset, Cowan could reach the NHL as early as next season and has potential to slot into the team's top 6 in the near future. He's a bet on the future. And that's where the proposal cuts deepest. Toronto will be giving up the present, Rielly, the future, Cowan, and a meaningful draft pick, all for a new beginning on defense. But is it worth it? On the other side, the Islanders would gain a lot. Rielly could take on an immediate leadership role, solidify the blue line, and even mentor young players like Alexander Romanov. Cowan would bring fresh energy to the offensive pipeline, and the second-round pick adds extra flexibility. But nothing is that simple. Even if both teams agreed, the biggest obstacle remains Rielly's willingness. He would have to approve the trade. And for now, that seems unlikely. He's focused on staying. He wants a restart under Berube, who was praised by MLSE CEO Keith Pelly as a fundamental piece in changing the team's culture. Culture and chemistry are crucial, Pelly said. If you have the right culture, that can make the difference between a goal and a touchdown. A curious phrase for hockey, but one that captures the urgency. The pressure is growing, and sometimes new culture demands new names. Berube has the board's confidence, but he still needs the right pieces. And maybe he himself is asking, is it possible to build something new while keeping the same pillars that have failed for years? Toronto has seen this movie before. Subtle tweaks, peripheral trades, minor adjustments. But the core, Matthews, Marner, Nylander, Rielly, remains. And so do the results. Strong regular seasons, playoff collapses. Maybe, for the first time, someone has to be brave enough to break the cycle. This trade proposal, even if it came from a fan, forces us to think differently. It forces us to face the fact that sometimes the pain of change is smaller than the pain of repeating the same mistakes. And you? Would you trade Morgan Rielly for Noah Dobson? Would you be ready to watch Easton Cowan shine in New York if that meant finally changing the Leafs' fate? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I want to hear from you. And of course, subscribe to the channel. Because in the next video, we'll talk about another bombshell on the horizon. What if Mitch Marner is really pushing for a trade to the Kings? The off-season is just getting started, and summer in Toronto has never been this hot.